All right, so lesson 4, explore. Students will be able to write a linear equation in point-slope form. Students will be able to find the equation of the line using slope and 1 point or just 2 points. All right, so skill number 1, write the equation of the line in given 1 slope and 1 point. Okay, so here is the point slope formula. Okay, if they take the slope formula, that's a y, 2 minus y1 over x, 2 minus x1, and they change it around. If you were told to get this alone on one side, you would multiply both sides by x, 2 minus x1, and that would put that over here, right? x2 minus x1, and that makes that go away on that side. That's all I did to get this over here, only the 2's aren't there anymore, okay? All right, because we're only using 1 point, there isn't a second one. We don't need a second one. And remember, if we're supposed to leave it in point slope form, then this y and this x are just plain. Like when you have a regular linear equation in slope-intercept form, let's say you have 2x plus 3, okay? This y and this x stay there. They don't have 1's or 2's on them. They represent an x and a y in an ordered pair. Okay, so in this formula, that's the plane x and the plane y. Okay, so those are going to stay there at the end if you end up converting it to slope-intercept form. Okay, so let's look at one of these. Write an equation of the line that goes through the point 0, 9 with a slope of 3/4. Okay, well, 0, 9 is a y-intercept, right? So that b equals 9, m, or slope, equals 3/4. This is the form of the equation in slope-intercept form. That's what we did before, okay? This is the equation in point-slope form. So the y and the plane x with nothing on them are now here, okay? The x1, y1, think of this as x1, y1, all right? So the y1 goes here, and the x1 goes over here, and there are negatives in the formula, like there is in the slope formula, okay? That's where they are. So there's no math to do if they give you those. You just need to put them in the right place. Okay? Yes, that is all there is to it. So before I move on, let's do another one like that. So, okay, so y, let's say you're given y equals 2x plus 5. Put that's in slope-intercept form, right? Put that in point-slope form. If we had a dot that worked. Let's see, if we put in a 0 for x, y would be a 5, right? That's the y-intercept is 0, 5, okay? So y minus, that's x, that's y. Y minus 5 equals the slope, and then in parentheses, x minus 0. That is this in point slope form. Okay? All right. That's probably a little too easy, so let me put a little more stuff going on here. All right, write the equation of the line, example number 2. Write the equation of the line that goes through the point 3, negative 4 with a slope of 3/4. Notice that this point is not the slope-intercept, okay? So that would be very difficult, if not impossible, for us to figure out. I mean, we'd have to get the graph out. We'd have to figure out our own b. It'd be complicated. So what we want to do, instead of using y equals mx plus b form, we wanted to put it in point slope form. So when you're given one point and the slope, you want to use the point slope form. That's why it's called that, okay, of the equation. So that's when you don't have a y-intercept, all right? So step one, label the order pair given. So if you have 3, -4, that's the x1, that's the y1, okay? They told me the slope was 3/5. All right, that's the given information. All right, substitute these two numbers into the point slope formula along with the slope. So point slope formula, if you need to write it down, write it down. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. The ones are after. I kind of imagined those were 2's, but that 2 in the point slope is not there anymore, okay? But the ones are on the outside, or they're last. All right, so let's put our numbers in. So y minus y1, which is -4. That is a double negative. Equals the slope, which was 3/5. Then the x, and then the 3 was x1. Done. Now, they like to see when you have a double negative, go ahead and make that a positive, so that's the final equation in point slope form. Okay? Once you get there, remember what we were doing, we were writing the equation of the line. So that is an equation of the line in point slope form. But we're supposed to do more with that. Sorry, I didn't finish reading the instructions. Let's see. Write the equation of the line that goes through the point with a slope of that. Equation of the line. So to convert it to slope-intercept, let's say they asked you to graph this. Well, this looks like a mess. Since it's not in slope-intercept form, you cannot graph this. You can't find B. You can find the slope, but you can't find B anywhere here, and the point wasn't B, okay? But what we can do is actually turn this equation around to the slope-intercept form so I can find B, okay? So far, B has been this lovely perfect number that we can put on a graph. And if you were to ask to graph one, it would be a lovely perfect whole number. But sometimes you're not asked to graph, you're just asked for the equation, so it might not be a whole number. So this one right here, if you go ahead, what would you do first if you were solving this equation for y? Okay, that's why we practiced the way we did. We would, remember what we did first, we distributed first. So 3/5x. And then negative, how do we multiply 3/1 times 3/5? That's going to give you 9/5, right? Then you want to move, so that's here. So then you want to move the 4 over. The 4, how do you add a -9/5 and you subtract 4 from it? Well, a 4/1 is what over 5? 1 times 5 is 5. 5 times that's 20. So that would give you 20/5, which would give you -29/5. All right, so now this is in point slope form. It's not a pretty number, it doesn't reduce, but that's what the intercept is. There is far more often times, let's see, 5 into 29 is about 5 something, -5 something. And it slopes this way. So it probably goes through somewhere like down there, but it's after a -5, but before a -6. So it goes through not in a grid spot, okay? But that doesn't mean it doesn't go through. So sometimes we need to find that out. So the way we were solving this on the warm-up is we were figuring out how to add a whole number to a fraction. Another way to do that after you get here is to go ahead and clear the fraction first if you want to. All right, so the LCD for this one here is a 5. So you multiply this times 5 and this times 5 and this times 5 and this times 5, all 4 terms by 5. Do not, if you do it before you distribute, that'll take them out here. So you're not distributing that fraction. Okay, so you can either do it here or you can do it back up here. Okay, to clear that fraction out. So when you do that, you get a 3 to distribute. So that turns into that. And then you move the 20 over by subtracting it from both sides. So I get all this, I combine like terms right there, and then I divide by 5. And I will get the same thing as I got up here. Okay, so either way you want to do it, works just fine. All right, this one says practice by writing an equation for each, first in point slope form and then the slope-intercept form. All right, so first in the point slope form. There's my point. There's my x1, y1. Okay, what was the point slope formula? Let me write it down. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. That's another one you need to memorize, okay? So y minus y1, that's a 3 in this case. Slope is a half, put the parenthesis in the x, minus 0. So that is that equation. That is that, yes, points in point slope form. Now we need to put it in slope-intercept form. You can tell what it's going to be. That's a b right there, and there's the slope. But let's do it mathematically. Y minus 3 equals, what do we do first? We distribute. Okay? If you want to clear the 2, you can clear the 2. But I eventually need 2 alone, so I'm just going to do it this way. Because, let's see, 1/2 times the negative 0 is that. So we're there right now. Then I'm going to add 3 to both sides. So y equals 1/2 x plus 3. There it is in the slope-intercept. There's my slope. There's my dot. That's b. Okay? All right, that was kind of easy. Let's try the next one that's not a b. All right? Write it in point slope. That's x1, y1. So y minus 3 equals the slope times x minus x1. There it is in point slope form. Now, distribute and move. Let me get my key out so I make sure I'm doing it right. That looks good. Seemed a little easy, but there you go. So this is your answer in point slope form. There'll be a time on the test. It just says put your answer in slope form, point slope form. That's it. You're done here, okay? If it wants you then to turn around at a point slope, or it asks you something about b, you'll have to turn it around, okay? All right, how about this one? This is x1, y1. So y minus 2 equals negative 2/3 x minus a minus 6. So y minus 2 equals negative 2/3 x plus 6 is what my final answer will look like. Okay? Turn that around into point slope form. You want to distribute the fraction. All right, what is negative 2/3 times a positive 6 over 1. That gives you a negative 12 over 3, which gives you a negative 4. Okay? I don't need to clear that fraction because all I need to do next is move the 2, and that's not a fraction. So y equals negative 2/3 minus 2. So it shouldn't be your first instinct just to clear any fractions, because think about it, you'd end up with a number in front of that y, and you don't want that. You're going to have to take it back out anyway. So it's not a good idea to clear the fraction all the time, because you may or may end up like up here. We cleared the fraction, we ended up putting it all back. So that's up to you how you want to do that. That's the answer to that. All right, so there's a little more on the Explorer, and then there's the practice. So let me do the rest of the Explorer here. It says, write the equation given 2 points. Okay, so now it's not going to give you the slope. It says, write the equation of the line that goes through these 2 points. Well, okay. I'm going to take a minute and crank out the slope formula. Okay. That gets me 2 over negative 1, which is a negative 2 for a slope. And then notice that that is a b. That is a y-intercept with a 0 for x. Okay, so that is your b. So to put it in, if it just says write an equation, it says the point slope may be needed. Well, in this one, I didn't need it. Here it is right here. Right into slope-intercept form. Okay. But the problem is the point might not be a b. Okay. So since the point slope formula doesn't have anything to do with b, you can use any point. So it can be quite handy. So this one, though, gives you 2 points, and it doesn't give you a slope, so I need to calculate the slope out first. So let me check this. Negative 3 minus 5 over 4 minus a minus 2. Make that a positive 2. That makes that 6. That makes that negative 8, which gives you that as a slope. Okay? Then I'm going to pick one of the points. Okay? So even though I have 2 points and I have them all labeled, I had labeled them to do the slope formula. Okay, but what I'm going to do now is just take point 1 and put it in the point slope formula with the slope that I just made. Okay, so y minus 5, that's y1, equals negative 4/3, that's the slope I figured out, minus a minus 2, which is my x1. Okay, just go ahead and make that a positive. So this is my equation in point slope form. Done. But what if they what if they asked you what b was, or what if they asked you it in points for slope intercept form? So what you'd have to do is go ahead and distribute that negative 4/3 to x, and then again to the 2. And when you do that, negative 4/3 times 2, that's going to give you the negative 8 over 3. Then you're going to add 5 to both sides. You got to add these together. 5 in terms of 3 is the same as 15 over 3. Add them together and you will get this right here. This is the equation of the line in slope-intercept form. Okay, so b is not a whole number for this particular example. What you can do is, since you decided that this is the formula, remember that the other point that's supposed to be on the same line will work in there. Okay, so this point here, try it in there and make sure that this is correct. So what I did was I put the negative 3 in for the y. Okay, I put the x is 4 multiplied by the slope, got negative 14 over 3, negative 16 plus 7, negative 9, Negative 9 over 3 is negative 3, so it is correct. Okay? So we got some to practice here.